Hello, and welcome to the team. I'm Julie Murdaugh. I'm the Coordinator of Educational Support Services, and I will be leading you through the SSP Facilitator training for today. Thank you so much for being willing to be on this team for your school site. I know that your principal and your other support staff, as well as the teachers at your site, really appreciate your involvement. Hopefully this training will take you through all the pieces that you need in order to start leading those solid SSP meetings for your students and staff at your site. Let's dig in. Here is the slide deck that we will be going through today. You also have a link for the actual slides in the information that I already shared with you. But again, my name is Julie Murdaugh, Coordinator of Educational Support Services. And in case you need to email me or get a hold of me, that is how you spell my name. So welcome to the training. First and foremost, we want to start with the idea of MTSS. And in Roseville City School District, we have a very clear understanding of the MTSS framework. The multi-tiered system of support is actually an integrated, comprehensive framework that organizes resources and services on a continuum to support students based on academic, behavioral, and social needs. When we're talking about supports and systems, we're actually talking about this MTSS framework. Framework is the key here. Within the framework, we look closer at an individual student's needs. Through the SSP process and the SSP system, we take data, documentation, and a team approach, which helps us determine how to address students' needs. Oftentimes, you will hear MTSS used as a synonym for SSP, and that is not how we want the terms shared. MTSS is the overarching framework that houses academics, social emotional learning, and behavior. So our SSP system or our SSP process is a system within MTSS. They are not one and the same. So you are considered an SSP facilitator, not an MTSS facilitator, because MTSS is so much more than just the SSP process. So I want you to think about it as MTSS is the framework and SSP is one system underneath that umbrella of MTSS, because there's other things underneath that umbrella, like all of our academic instruction, our second step instruction, our PBIS systems that are put into place at our sites. So SSP is just one of those systems. So let's dig in and look at how we do it. So we use our SSP system to do these things. We identify a problem, we gather data, we identify function or suspected function if the area of concern is behavior. We select and implement interventions, we check on progress, and we determine next steps as a team. And as a facilitator, you have specific role on that team. So let's take a closer look at the members of our team and what our meetings look like. On an SSP team, you have multiple members. You have a facilitator, which is yourself. They start the meeting, keep the meeting going, take notes, set up calendar invites, and help the team get ready for the meetings. The classroom teacher brings all the data and explains the student and the problems that he or she needs help with within that team meeting. We have the RSP teacher who offers information regarding various grade level, target levels, standards, current interventions, and the psychologist or someone who functions in the psychologist role. And this person functions to offer behavior interventions or strategies, can speak to possible motivation or function of behavior. They can also suggest some accommodations. We have our TOSA, who sits in as an important member of the team, and our site administrator or our principals. And in some instances, it could be an assistant principal in that role as well. But these are all of the important members, and they can overlap as well. So everybody can offer strategies. Everybody can talk about data collection. Everybody can offer intervention ideas. It's not that you can't do those things. We just have a plethora of people that can offer support to our staff. Within the SSP process, we have lots of acronyms that are thrown about. And so here's just a quick snapshot. Remembering that MTSS is that multi-tiered system of support. The SSP is a system within MTSS. And we have a variety of meetings, DTMs, SAMs, and SSMs. And each of those meetings fits a different purpose or has a different purpose in our calendar. And then our request for support is the document that the teachers fill out in order to request a meeting. But these are all of the acronyms that will come up often in your role as an SSP facilitator. In order to ground us in our meetings, let's watch this 4-minute video.
The first tier in the Student Support Protocol, or SSP, is a grade level or department data team meeting, or DTM. These meetings are facilitated by the school administrator and attended by all grade level or department teachers. Other support staff may be invited as needed or when appropriate. All students within the grade level or department are discussed as teachers review the academic, behavioral, and social-emotional status of each and every student. This process will identify individual actions for students based on current classroom data. After grade level or department interventions have been tried for a minimum of 4 weeks, a teacher may request for support via the Student Assistance Meeting, or SAM. The data team meetings will also serve as a progress monitoring tool for all interventions and services offered across the grade level by the grade level. These meetings will occur 3 to 4 times a year. The second tier of the Student Support Protocol is the Student Assistance Meeting, or SAM. This structure brings together all support service providers at a school site and focuses on referred students. This team coordinates school-based interventions and services to promote student success. The team consists of 2 SSP facilitators, site psychologist, RSP teacher, the referring teacher, an administrator, and other support staff as needed. The 2 facilitators will be responsible for scheduling and facilitating the meeting and taking and distributing notes from the meeting. The SSP team will meet each week. Generally, a team will meet twice a month for SAMs and discuss 2 to 3 students on each meeting day. When a student continues to need support after going through our tiered structure of support, which includes grade level and school site interventions, the School Student Success Meeting, or SSM, will be held as a Tier 3 strategy. The SSP team, along with parents and possibly outside agency representation, will problem solve and coordinate interventions and supports that assist our students, their families, and teacher as they seek positive solutions for maximizing student potential. The SSP team will meet each week. Generally, a team will meet once a month for the SSMs and discuss 1 to 2 students on each meeting day. A key factor to making the SSP work will be the site facilitators. In addition to scheduling and facilitating the meetings, facilitators will monitor and maintain the request for support documents, oversee the progress monitoring Google Sheets once a student has gone through a SAM, work with the referring teacher to gather and review data from the action steps on the individual student plan before a follow-up meeting occurs. They will be a resource about possible interventions, accommodations, and services. Facilitators will also be responsible for taking notes at all meetings and distributing the notes to staff and parents. These facilitators will be trained on a yearly basis and receive a stipend. Together as educators in the Roseville City School District, we will use the SSP to enhance our continued support of each and every student across the district. Thank you for your attention today and your future work as we roll out this new protocol district-wide starting in August of 2019.
As you saw in the video, or as you heard in the video, our tiers of support include tiers 1, 2, and 3. What was covered in that video is the idea that we have meetings at each of those levels, and we increase supports for students based on the data that we collect and the teacher brings to the team, and we make suggestions based on that to offer students what they need to be successful. So something important to remember that as an SSP facilitator, you will not attend data team meetings outside of your grade level. This is a tier 1 support. This is a tier 1 meeting that will now be moved to PLCs. And this is something that is done at the PLC level within a school system. So you are not responsible for doing anything. We just want to make sure that SSP facilitators are aware that there are data team meetings that occur where we discuss students, and the need for an SSP might come out of these data team meetings. Where you are really involved is beyond this level as we look to this yellow section for these student assistance meetings. Here you will see a little bit more about what was involved in the video regarding our SAMs. Most important piece of a SAM is that the parents are not invited, and this is really the first level of support given to the teacher when the team shows up, looks at the data that the teacher has provided, discuss information about that student, and then make some recommendations for the teacher to implement moving forward. The follow-up will occur 4 weeks after the interventions, 4 weeks after the first meeting, to allow for the teacher to implement those interventions before we meet again. And then after the SAM follow-up, which is a SAM FU, we move into our third layer of support, which is a student success meeting, or an SSM. This is where parents are now involved, parents attend the meeting, and the need to increase services is brought to the team because the team feels that more supports are required to put into place for this student. This can lead to testing after an SSM and an SSM follow-up. The team can decide to push forward with an assessment for special education, but that is not the purpose of these meetings. The purpose of these meetings is to get as much support as possible for a student who needs more support. Again, there are 3 types of meetings, but the 2 you will be involved in this year are SAMs and SSMs. The most important pieces to remember are that these are brief and informative. SAMs should last between 10 and 15 minutes, and an SSM should last no more than 30. We keep them student-centered. We don't have to go have the teacher read everything that's on the paperwork. It is the job and the role of all members of the team to come prepared to discuss that student. The idea being that people read that ahead of time. So as a facilitator, it is a helpful tip to email a team ahead of time and remind them that you have a meeting coming up, and to remind them to read the documentation and come prepared to offer intervention ideas and strategies. The last part of the meeting that we want you to remember, the last part of the important pieces, is that it really is action-oriented. So as a facilitator, your job is to keep the meeting going. If people are off task, just remind them that we have a time constraint and we need to stay on task, and that we want to make sure that everything gets documented on the SSP form. So as you saw in the video and also in the previous slides, any teacher can request a SAM to receive strategies and supports for a student. Those meetings last between 10 and 15 minutes. And in order to get a SAM scheduled, the teacher has to fill out the RFS, or the request for support. So once that request for support is filled out, the facilitator, you will review that prior to the first meeting to make sure that all of the green areas are filled out. So in order to actually schedule for that first SAM meeting, the teacher needs to submit the RFS, which creates a document, and then the teacher needs to go back in and fill in all the green areas. Once the green areas are filled in, then you as a facilitator are allowed to schedule the meeting. In addition, prior to the follow-up SAM, so in between the SAM and the SAM follow-up, the teacher will actually fill out the yellow portions, and I'll walk you through that in just a second. The other job of the facilitator is to make sure that you schedule meetings and you send out invites using Google Calendar. Here are just a few important steps. Your role as a facilitator is, like I said, you ensure that the referring teacher's RFS is completely filled out and that you're ready to schedule that meeting. And at the meeting, you are projecting it so that the team can read the documentation easier. The facilitator also lets the referring teacher know the order of the SAMs for that day so the referring teacher can show up at the right time. So for example, if most sites are holding their meetings on Wednesdays after PLC, all sites are holding their meetings Wednesdays after PLC. So let's say you're scheduling your meetings to run from 2 to 3 o'clock, and you have a SAM scheduled at 2, and you have another SAM scheduled at 2:20, and another SAM scheduled at 2:40. You're only inviting the teachers to those meetings that need their specific time. So they're not waiting around that entire hour. They know exactly when their meeting is going to start. I'm not going to go into the referring teacher box, but you have it here. It is important that you understand the role that is the referring teacher's jobs and the roles that are actually under you as the facilitator. The other important pieces of the SAM for the facilitator side, like we said, it should be between 10 and 15 minutes. Please assign a timekeeper to the meeting. Please have somebody watch the time. Use the agenda, and that's in this presentation at the end, and you want to make sure that you're filling out the forms at the meeting. For the follow-up, the facilitator's job is to check in with the referring teacher 1 week prior to the follow-up and ensure that that teacher has completed the yellow section of the RFS. So just because a teacher has a SAM does not mean that they necessarily need the follow-up. However, it is recommended that you schedule the follow-up before you leave the initial SAM meeting. So you have SAM number 1, you're scheduling it for let's say a student's name is John Doe. John Doe has a SAM on September 1st. You're going to schedule the follow-up for 4 weeks from September 1st, which would be September, let's just say 4 weeks would be 28 days. So let's say you're scheduling it for September 29th. A week before that meeting, that follow-up on the 29th, the facilitators are reaching out to the teacher and saying, hey, you have your follow-up for John Doe on the 29th. Do you still need the follow-up? If that teacher says yes, you now have that already calendared. If the teacher says no, great, you say thank you. You can go ahead and take that off of the calendar. But you want to hold those dates. You don't want to try to find follow-up dates later. So schedule the follow-up. Then as the facilitator, your role is to check in with that teacher 1 week prior to see if they still need that meeting. The next part on the facilitator side here is that you also set the SSM date at the SAM follow-up, and you make sure to give the referring teacher the brochure that is over here in the teacher side. Here's a sample schedule. So I want to show you here is these are not, again, these are the greens that you're not going to be involved in, but let's look here. So let's say for Jill, we had the SAM on 9/17. Before we leave that meeting on 9/17, we have already put that Jill, Jane, and Jack, that their dates are already set for their follow-ups on the 15th. Likewise, that's also the case for Michelle down here, who has her SAM follow-up on 10/22. We've gone ahead and scheduled an SSM because we feel like at this follow-up meeting on 10/22, we felt like she's really going to need an SSM. We push that out about 4 weeks and we get it on the calendar. If you don't get these meetings on the calendar, your calendar will fill up and you will not have an opportunity to provide teachers with follow-ups, which cannot happen. So go ahead and schedule out your meetings before leaving on those specific meeting days, and you won't run into scheduling issues. I've provided a calendar template here for you to use so that you can fill that in as needed. So go ahead and make a copy of that and use it as you see fit. Moving into the SSMs, they are a little bit longer of a meeting. We refer students to the SSM after the SAM and the SAM follow-up have been held, or based on urgency. So you can move a child to an SSM if the team feels that some interventions have been done, or it's so extreme that you're needing to bring parents in and have a meeting. In a traditional setting, if you follow the SAM follow-up, and you go into the SSM, these are the steps you would follow. So make sure that you review that RFS after the SAM and SAM follow-up prior to the SSM to ensure that the pink portion of the RFS is done. So with each additional meeting, there's a different portion of the paperwork that needs to be filled out. As a facilitator, it is your responsibility to contact the referring teacher 1 week prior to the meeting, as I already stated, to make sure that that meeting is still necessary. Here you can see some of your important steps for your job as the facilitator. You're going to check in with the referring teacher to ensure that the parent has been invited. You're going to make sure that the RFS is filled out, and you're going to project it at the meeting, and you're going to help with note taking. You're also going to make sure that you are greeting the parent. Oftentimes the teacher is nervous. So as a facilitator, it's really helpful if you help bring the parent in, sit the parent next to the teacher, not across from the teacher, so that the parent feels a part of the meeting. Help with timekeeping or assign a timekeeper, follow the agenda, and then make sure you schedule the follow-up before you leave that SSM. So parent knows they're coming back in 4 weeks, team knows they're coming back in 4 weeks, and everybody has that on their calendar. For the follow-up SSMs, you're going to check in with the referring teacher 4 weeks after the SSM, a week before the follow-up, and you're going to lead that SSM follow-up just like you would all of the other meetings. All right, that was a lot of information, so I'm just going to take a deep breath. It will come as you sit through meetings, as you participate in meetings, you will become so familiar with this. It will get very, very simple and streamlined for you. Many of you are working on a team that already has a facilitator that is experienced. And so I encourage you to lean on that person so that you can get more comfortable with the process. Now, in terms of how to access documents and what are you talking about, Julie, with the RFS and the folders and the forms, here is what I want to walk you through. Within your drive, you should have access to your site folder. And now that I have your names, I have given you access to your SSP site folder. You should have already had it as a teacher before, but if you didn't for some reason, now you will have access as the facilitator. In the folder for your site, you will see one folder per grade level. You will see something called Form a Publisher Output. Don't touch this. It will delete folders. It will get rid of things. It is not good. You will also see something that says facilitators only. That is for you. If you need to get access to the original documents, you would go in there, but I'm more than happy to help with that. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask, but this is what your folder should look like. Now, it is important that every teacher at your site have access to the folder so that they can see previous documents and current documents. So with that being said, you should see up here, you should make sure that you can see that every teacher is given view-only access. So once you open up your site folder and you see, now we're looking at Crestmont, as a facilitator between you and your partner, you need to go in and make sure that every person at your site has access to your folder, and you're going to set it to be view only. So when you go share it, you're going to want to make sure that the access looks like this. So you should have editing rights to the folder, but any additional teachers or staff members should only have view access. You can remove any teachers that do not need access. So if you had teachers that left the site, you're more than welcome to take them off of the folder. That is fine. And make sure that everyone besides the SSP team only has view access only. That is your responsibility as a facilitator to make sure that everybody that has access to the folder has the right access. If you need help, reach out to me. I'm happy to help with that. You want to make sure it's view, not edit. And you want to add names there and then go ahead and invite them as needed. When you go into your site folder, in addition to the grade level folders and this one that says facilitators only, you should see the request for support, or it might be RFS as the acronym. This is where teachers go in order to get the form. So if they say, I don't know where to fill out an RFS, you say in your site folder, in your SSP folder for our site, let's pretend we're Crestmont, in your SSP folder, go to the document that says request for support. When they click on there, it takes them to the RFS link where they can fill out the RFS. Once they do that, it will show up like this. So they fill out this link, takes them to a Google form. They fill in the form. It generates it as a document. Now that it's there, they have editing access because they created it. So these are the steps right here. I'll let you look at that. You will get notification that someone filled out an RFS. That is so that you know that you have documents that the teachers need to fill out. So once it goes here, the teacher gets an email that gives them the link. The classroom teacher is responsible for filling out the green section of this document. And then once you see that it's all filled out and they're ready for a meeting, you schedule that meeting and you move that into the correct folder. So let's pretend I'm a second grade teacher. I fill one out for Bodie Murdaugh. It goes in here. You're the facilitator. You check the form. I have filled it out. I reach out to you and say, hey, facilitator, I'm ready to schedule Bodie's meeting. You check that it's filled out. You schedule the meeting. You then move it up into this second grade folder because Bodie is a second grader. And then the process takes over from there in terms of meetings are scheduled and teams come prepared to discuss student. Just so you know, there's an intranet site that has some MTSS helpful documents in it. If you're wondering about the handbook or you're wondering where to get more of the SSM brochures for parents, those are housed on the intranet. Remember, you have to be logged in as staff. Last but not least, I want to walk you through some of these resources. So this is a calendar template like I showed you before with a drop down so you can keep track of students and what meetings they had and when. This is a list template in a spreadsheet form so that you can actually track all of your students that you have SSPs for. This is a great way. I will go in and make these up to date with 22, 23, or you can when you make the copy. But that is a great way, a spreadsheet to share with your whole entire staff. These are the agendas. I would print those out so that you have them so the team stays on time and does it in an efficient manner when you're all together. Here are some behavior resources. Here's the checklist. If teachers are saying that they sit down to fill out the paperwork and it feels cumbersome or they don't know what date they need to have and it's taking a long time, remind them that this is the checklist that they should have before they sit down. So this is a resource that you can give to them and you can say, have all this stuff ready to go, because then when you sit down to fill out the form, it actually goes really quickly. And then the last one we've talked about is the parent brochure. So this is on here. It's linked on the actual slides where it goes over SSM, and it's also attached to the MTSS information on the intranet. And last but not least, I want to give you some working steps. So the first thing you will want to do as soon as you can is work with your SSP team to meet on your SSP day to review expectations and your priority list from last year. So right now, you probably don't have a lot of kids needing meetings, but you should be meeting as a team to go over your priority list and figure out where you left off and who needs what from last year. If you have additional students that you're worried about and you're moving towards an assessment plan, you need to be sure that the psychologist is looped into this. Were they informed at the end of last year? Are they aware that there are some promises of assessment plans, or that there are some kids you need to discuss? And then, were there any assessment plans that were promised? And if so, the psychologist needs to be aware of those because we have time deadlines on those. Please make sure that your SSP folder is up to date with current staff and correct access, view only. Work with your SSP colleague to prepare any resources your team might find helpful. For example, you might want to share the calendar and the spreadsheet with the other members of your team. And also, you might want to talk to your principal about whether or not you need to do a little refresher for the staff. Again, I'm happy to help with that as the MTSS coordinator or coordinator of Ed Support Services. That's my other title. I'm happy to help with that as well if you need some help, but that might be a good discussion to have with your principal. And then last but not least, if you could please go in and fill out this feedback form. This will help guide me in my training with you all this year and helps me know if I need to make any changes or adjustments to the presentation. So I look forward to meeting you all very soon. Our meeting on the 15th will be via Zoom, but I am so excited to meet all of you in person at some point, and come out to a meeting and see you all in action. And you don't have to worry about that now. That'll come later down the line, but I am here to support you and I am here for anything you need. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And again, thanks so much. Welcome to the team, and I look forward to seeing you soon.